Welcome back to Distorted Opinions. I'm joined by Matt and Ted as always, and guys, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this is our final episode of 2020, and what a day 2020 has been.
A day? A whole year?
A what? A long day. It feels day. Like it's been one long day that we just haven't left the house. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
He's a shower.
That's true. Yeah, no, true. That's important. Hygiene.
Shower, guys.
So today, being our final episode of the year, we thought that a good way to end the year would be to talk about some of the best and worst happenings in music for 2020. And I know we have a lot of things to talk about. I know that 2020 in general, I think we can all agree, there's been a lot of bad, but I think there's also been a lot of good too as far as music is concerned. So why don't we get right into it? Matt, I know you are planning to talk about some of the album releases that happened in 2020. So why don't you lead us in with that, and then we'll kind of see where things go as we progress.
All right. You know what? I'm going to change things up, though.
Oh.
I think I'm going to hand it over to Ted.
Because it sounds like you have something that we're going to have some bickering about. You hinted at this in the pre-show.
Yes. I have to. Yeah, Ted.
Okay. Hey,
Ted's going to have to stir this up because when it gets to me, I might, for our listeners, some listeners may like me, some listeners may not like me.
The show's going to end, Ted's not coming back.
Yeah, this is the last episode that I'm in, apparently, based on some facts you might be adding to this. But, all right, fine. I'll take it over.
The worst of 2020 here is that the show comes to a screeching halt when Matt and Ted get into an argument over album releases for the year.
Could be.
But Ted, break the ice.
All right. So, in looking at a couple of different things, preparing for this show, obviously for me, looking at the best of 2020, a lot of great music came out this year. Obviously, if you've listened to these episodes already, I'm a big Lamb of God fan, and their self-titled album that came out June 19th was fantastic. For the Lamb of God quote-unquote purist, with this album not having Chris Adler on drums, and this being the first studio album with their new drummer, obviously the purists it's not Lamb of God because it's not the original lineup, but the album is still fantastic. I think the new drummer gives a nice flavor or a change of pace to the sound of the band, and it's a good listen. Fantastic. Resurrection Man is my favorite song on that album. Really, really good. For the black metal end, Carrick Angren's Frankensteina Stratamontanus. I had to write that out to make sure I can say that correctly.
Sounds like they're international bourbon.
Yeah, no, they're out of the Netherlands, and
okay. That makes sense.
It's their 5th or 6th studio album. And that album is also fantastic. They have the title track from that album is really catchy. Their band's known for telling a whole story through all of the songs start to end. So it's certainly no different here in this particular one than if you can imagine. This one's about Frankenstein. Fantastic. That album came out June 26th. Have to talk about Deftones and the Ohms album that came out September 25th. It's old Deftones coming back. It's the White Pony era Deftones remade for 2020, and was really a good listen. The title track on that album also is my favorite track, Ohms. That was really, really good. Would be remiss to not talk about Sevendust, Blood and Stone. They have some really good tracks on that, and that came out October 23rd. So some of the clearly some great music came out this year. And, for some of the worst, to talk about the worst, there's certainly the lack of shows and, bands needing to postpone music because they're not unable to go on tour to promote the music. So music was being delayed. And then some bands like Behemoth and Lamb of God 2 did remote shows. So pay basically for a live stream of their performance, which a couple bands did. So that certainly can be one avenue maker, because obviously these bands, if you're not selling music, I mean, touring is where bands make all their money. And if you're unable to do that, you need to get creative. So I suppose there's a silver lining in that, because bands were certainly being creative and trying to still reach out to their fans during this time when they couldn't physically tour. So given the environment and how 2020 was, it was certainly cool to see the creativity in process to still have that interaction with the bands and fans at the same time. So not all bad. I'm always a glass half full type of guy, so easy to do that. But I know that's a quick summary. I do, for the albums best of 2020, I do have one which I'm saving as my pick of the week, as my actual best album of 2020. So I'm going to hold off on saying which one that is just yet. But those other 4 albums, yeah, suspense, right? Those other 4 albums are really good. So highly recommend all of those as well. So with that said, I know I'm going to send it back to Matt hesitantly, because I'm curious to know what kind of argument we're about to get into. So go ahead.
Okay, so as a reminder, okay, Ted and I have over 20 plus years of friendship. All right, so even if there is a disagreement, we're still brothers in the end or whatnot. But I'm gonna, going into 2020. I mean, 2020 was just messed up for everyone. I mean, I think that's definitely fair to say. And if there's anything that's been really great about 2020 is, obviously doing this show with you guys and whatnot. This show has been,
He's buttering me up. He's buttering me up. He's ready to drop the hammer. His face starting out real nice. This is a compliment sandwich. I smell it.
So I mean, this is one of the positive things about 2021. But we'll jump right back into what we're talking about, and I primarily focus my topics around a couple of worst albums and a couple of best albums. So with that being said, you know what, we're just gonna rip the Band-Aid off. We're gonna go with the worst albums. I mean, personally for me, for those that have known me growing up, especially in high school, and obviously Ted, our band, people thought that we were Green Day's number one cover band or whatnot. But the recent album that came out in February, the father of all mother effers or whatnot, I'm sorry, it's horrible. I don't care what anyone says. You might have the number one best Green Day fan out there or whatnot. It is absolutely horrible. I couldn't even listen to the first track, which was what it was. I'm looking back, actually the subtitle of it. And it's really disappointing because Green. I think anything after American Idiot, just it felt rushed. It really wasn't creative. It kind of brought. It didn't really. I felt like it deteriorated the image of what Green Day was. You have the albums like Dookie, you have Nimrod, you have Kerplunk, you have all those types of albums and one that are absolutely just phenomenal albums. American Idiot was great. It was a different type of album, but still it still worked out. Turning into a musical, that's a different opinion, might be for a different show, whatnot. But anything after that just kind of went down, and then they made that. I don't know what the hell they did with the whole, that 3 album, back to back, Uno, Dos, and Tre, which is another topic too. But this album is just absolutely. I'm sorry, it wasn't good at all, and hopefully, Green Day will kind of step it up again and go back to its original roots. And I'm finding that, a lot of these bands nowadays are starting to do that. Like the Smashing Pumpkins came out with their album, just recently. It's actually on the tip of my tongue right now. I want to say Orc or something like that. I don't know. I could be wrong in that one, but that's kind of going back to like the early days of Smashing Pumpkins. So crossing fingers that there's hope that, Green Day will kind of get back to its roots and whatnot. But that's one worst album, and the second worst album is Marilyn Manson's We Are Chaos album. So sorry, Ted. Ted's a huge fan of Marilyn Manson. I tried listening to the We Are Chaos album. I did a little. It's a little different. It's definitely a lot melodic. I definitely think it's a lot more softer too. And this is probably just my personal biased opinion, but listening to The Beautiful People, which obviously came out years ago, to We Are Chaos is like
two different experiences, 100%. And if you're looking for Manson in Antichrist Superstar or any of those early 2000 era scene, those albums, that isn't quite where he has been going, the path he's been going down, especially with the past couple of albums. It's definitely been a bit more melodic, a bit slower, a bit less
very so.
Gritty in a sense. I mean, it's gritty, but in a different way. And so anyone that would, I mean, I'm a big fan of the early Manson stuff too, don't get me wrong, but the newer stuff definitely has a different flavor than anything in the past that he's done. And I mean, he's in his mid or 50s. He's in his 50s,
I think so,
at this point. So you can't rock out like you're 18 all the time,
right?
And
yeah,
when you're a rock superstar like that, it could catch up with you too.
Right, but, 100%.
Either way, I get it. Not a complete stab in the heart, but
we'll consider it like
still,
a little.
I'm still a fan. That's fine.
Right. And I think again, kind of going a little bit into this. I didn't really do a bit of digging into the Green Day's album because just my opinion was already solidified. But with Manson, he's very creative. So I had that curiosity as far as like, okay, what brought him down this road of being a little more softer? And I was looking more into it, and he was actually inspired by, most of his music was inspired by Elton John. So that's why I kind of took a little bit of a turn, which made me think, okay, now I understand why this is a little bit softer than what his other previous stuff was. I wouldn't, but when you kind of have the name Marilyn Manson behind these, it doesn't really fit. It's like, trying to put, teriyaki chicken on a peanut butter sandwich. It doesn't make any sense and whatnot. Not saying, go try it. Hey, if you try it, let us know. I wouldn't know. So
send us an email.
Yeah, send us an email
if that works.
Teriyaki chicken and peanut butter sandwiches and whatnot. But best albums, okay, and this is where I would go. So I may have probably deteriorated Marilyn Manson, but we talked about Seven Dust and Blood and Stone. Again, phenomenal album. Especially when he did the cover of The Day I Tried to Live. A Soundgarden cover.
So good.
It was. I'll have to admit, I was a little bit, teared up with it because it's you could still feel Chris Cornell in that song, even though it's a Seven Dust song. You could still feel Chris Cornell like behind it. You definitely see the inspiration behind it, but not only because they did a great, cover of it, but track albums like Dying to Live, Blood from a Stone, Kill Me, Nothing Left to See Here Anymore, Criminal, the album's just phenomenal. It definitely reminds me of the older roots of Seven Dust. And, I think that's from a rock standpoint, that's absolutely phenomenal. And from a more softer standpoint, Taylor Swift's Folklore, I'm going to say it. Probably one of the best albums of 2020. And now for those that are listening that probably may have gasped that went, how the hell could Matt say Marilyn Manson was the worst and then Taylor Swift was the best? I'll tell you this, because the backstory of Taylor Swift shown that she said, hey, you know what? I get so much more creativity than what some of these idiotic A&R reps are standing for. So when you're listening to Folklore, it's actually got a sticker on it for parental advisory, which was very, very surprising. So my curiosity was like, well, I have to see really how, what makes this album really PA. If it's talking about, ex-boyfriends and whatnot, we're striking out. But, the album is, I was actually like, wow. I went to my wife and I said, this album's actually really not bad. And I think in my opinion, when you're an artist, okay, one of the things about creativity is it's feeling, okay, and being very transparent, okay. If you, whether you're an artist, okay, like painting a picture or writing a music, okay, if you are being transparent, that's the best work that you're gonna come out with. Okay, if you feel like you're gonna be rushing something, that's when you have the shittiest music out there. So for Taylor Swift, some of her writing in most of all these songs is very transparent. Something that you would say is just a regular conversation that we could have, with one another, or with the friends, or with bosses, or anything like that. And specifically, one of the things that I was talking, like one of her singles is the song Betty, and she's talking as if she was like a guy dating this girl named Betty. But one of the things she was mentioning, there's a lyric where it's saying, would you tell me to go fuck off? And Kaylee might have to blur that out and whatnot. But but it's very unique, because when you're thinking Taylor Swift, you're thinking this innocent girl, talking about lollipops and furry pens and whatever the hell you want to talk about. And then you have this girl that's got like this, almost like this dirty mouth that comes out, and it's just kind of like, wow, that's a really unique, and it brought a different color of what her musical style is. So listening more into this album, there was a lot of that colorful language that brought a different type of an element. And I'm one for completely accepting vulgar in swears, because I think vulgar and swears, because it just, I feel like it's a way of bringing out transparency when you're trying to explain something.
And honestly, swear could certainly describe a feeling better than any other word.
Exactly.
So, absolutely.
Gosh darn it.
Doesn't
have the same push as like.
Yeah, you're not gonna have James Hetfield from Metallica be like, "Gosh darn it, yeah."
Yeah.
Although you might these days, I don't think he swears as much as he used to now that he's.
Plus, I think when you get in a different age, when you start to change your language on it. But Taylor Swift, the Folklore, I have to say it's probably one of the best albums out there. And for local albums, I'm gonna say it, the Town Meeting album, make things better.
Great album.
A great local band album and whatnot for my.
And if you haven't heard, we had our Luke Condon episodes.
That's right.
Go back and listen to them if you haven't. One of the singers from Town Meeting, which is obviously the band we're talking here. So they make really good music.
A little plug for Luke. He just released a solo album. If you haven't seen our post on social media, that I highly recommend checking out. And yesterday, actually, he released, or maybe it was 2 days ago, he released a video for one of the songs. My
wife doesn't like Stephen.
Yeah, doesn't like Stephen King.
My wife doesn't like Stephen
video
King novels.
Is hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. It's 100% Luke. So definitely give that a listen as well. But Matt, I see there's an album actually sitting behind you there on the shelf. What is that? Hey Luke, this one's for you.
We talked about this, and I was very excited it finally came in. But yes, this is the actual vinyl album that I don't have a turntable for, but I still bought.
You're gonna have to get one.
It's still great.
Yeah, time to get one. Christmas is coming.
Yep.
Ooh, Santa.
I say that because we're recording prior to Christmas for this year end.
Yeah.
Christmas is over by the time you've seen this, but
I know.
for what it's worth, my first vinyl album was actually Metallica's Reload, and I got it because it was at Newbury Comics, and I thought it was really cool to have the big artwork. And I had that album for probably about 15 years before I finally got a turntable to be able to listen to it on. It was mostly just decorative art. And once I finally got a turntable, that really just opened the door for me wanting to buy more and more vinyl. I have a compared to other people I know, I have a small collection, but I've also got all my dad's vinyl from when he was a teenager, and so there's a lot of classic rock stuff in there too. So you got to get on the turntable, man. I think you're gonna really enjoy listening to stuff on vinyl.
I will. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and hey, big guy, if you're listening up there, I want to open one up. But I gotta say, those are my worst and best albums and whatnot. But enough. Works with you too, Kayla.
Alrighty.
Even though maybe from like a gallery view, she's to my left.
No, you're in the right place for me. You're pointing right at me, so you're good. And yeah, Ted's at the bottom for me.
Oh.
All right. So yeah, you guys talked a bit more about music specifically. I'm gonna be a little more broad in my good and bad, and I'm gonna get the bad out of the way right off the bat so we can move on to the good. So for my bad list, beginning of the year was the news of the passing of Neil Peart from Rush, and I wouldn't consider myself to be the biggest Rush fan by any means, but I really love Rush, and I enjoy listening to a lot of their songs, and those three guys put together have more talent than most people that I can think of offhand. Like, just phenomenal musicians. And as we've talked about before, I don't know a lot about drums, but what I do know is that Neil Peart is kind of regarded as one of the greatest
He's
drummers.
God tier.
Yeah, he's the professor, as they refer to him as. And so, losing him at the beginning of this year, and I don't think, and of course my camera decides it's going to get all kinds of wonky as soon as I start talking. Not a problem when I'm sitting here not doing anything, but as soon as I start to talk, it's like, oh, I'm going to be possessed again. So if you're watching the video, my apologies. Oh, watch out, Matt. Last time you did that, you froze up your entire camera. So, the... Oh my God, if you're listening to this, there's some crazy shutter stuff happening with Matt's camera right now because he's got it pointed up at the ceiling and it apparently doesn't like that. Much like my camera is just wigging out for no reason. So anyway, I don't think a lot of people knew that Neil was even sick. So I think the news of his passing, I think, came as a shock to a lot of people. I know I was shocked when I read about it. And then, if that's not bad enough, later on in the year, a few months ago, then we get the news that Eddie Van Halen has passed away. And again, I don't think a lot of people knew that Eddie had been sick again. And so, those two guys alone, I would go out on a limb and say were probably some of the biggest losses to the rock community in a while. It's really just been a crappy year as far as, losing those two musicians, real talented guys that there's just nobody out there like them. And so that kind of ties into my next item on my bad list, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because we've talked about this briefly in other episodes, and I'm pretty sure we're probably going to dedicate a whole episode in the new year to dissecting this situation. But for those of you not from the Boston area, we've talked a bit about the demise of WAAF, which was the rock station here in Boston for just short of 50 years, and the frequency was sold off to K-Love, which is a Christian rock station, back in February. And so, this kind of ties in a little bit to my previous points about Neil and Eddie. One of the things that I really liked about AAF, aside from the music, was the DJs. And I thought the DJs always did a really good job. When there was tragedy, whether it was in the rock world or tragedy in general, like 9/11, I always felt like that was a station you could turn to, and the DJs had a way of making it feel like there was a community coming together and kind of mourning a loss or going through a problem together. And so, one of the things that really stands out to me about WAAF in more recent months was back in January when that news of Neil passing came out. Mike Shue, who was a DJ on AAF at the time, was a huge Rush fan. And as soon as I heard the news about Neil, I knew that I had to go turn on the radio and listen to AAF because it was during Shue's show, and I knew he had to be doing some sort of a tribute to him. And it didn't disappoint. I listened through his entire show. The station manager basically gave him carte blanche to run the show however he felt necessary to pay tribute to Neil, and I thought he did a really, really excellent job. And it was also hard to listen to at times because you could tell Shu was getting emotional. He, Rush, he's been a long time Rush fan. If you ever listened to that station and you listened to his show, you knew that Mike Shu was a huge Rush fan. And so that's probably one of the things I miss the most about AAF not being on the air, and especially right now where I'm sure they would have had a way of somehow kind of bringing people together and forming a sense of community despite everything that's going on right now, and concerts not being able to happen and people not being able to socialize and go hang out and have dinner together at a restaurant and those sorts of things. So, that was really upsetting when that happened. And then on a more personal level, we've talked about this a little bit in previous shows too, but COVID put an end to jam sessions, and just like
I mean that we, and for listeners, definitely have been hosting, or we've been coming together as a circle of friends to jam once a month, every month for close to 2 years, which for the longest time is, I mean, given everyone's schedules and how many people get to attend these, the fact that we were able to get, 7 of us together, especially at this point where, some of our friends have kids, and, there's certainly other challenges going on in life, everything else. And we were still able to dedicate a day a month to get together and, be able to play music. And coincidentally, the last jam session that we had this year was the Saturday
2 days before the shutdown.
It was Saturday before the shutdown started Monday. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, with all things considered, the last possible weekend we could have ever had a jam session. We actually had one. So no regrets there, but certainly as a musician and enjoying the time spent and being creative and bouncing new ideas off of other players, and having that jam experience again certainly has been something definitely missed. I completely agree, Kayla.
And for me,
it's right in the feels.
And for me, so like you mentioned that you guys have been doing the jam sessions for close to 2 years. I came into that like kind of on the tail end, because I didn't start attending the jam sessions until December of last year. And at that point, I think we talked about this a bit on a previous show as well, but at that point I hadn't played guitar in 2.5 years, on my own, let alone with anybody else. It had been much longer than that since I had played with anybody else. And so for me, I felt like I was just kind of getting back into playing guitar again. I was just getting into playing with other people again, which is a totally different experience than sitting at your house by yourself and just playing songs over and over again. And so, I feel like just as I started to kind of gain back a little bit of a social life and the opportunity to pick up my guitar and have fun playing with other people, no sooner did that, start to happen, and then COVID kind of took that all away. So that has definitely been like a major downer for me in 2020, but it kind of leads into what I found to be some of the good in 2020, which was in particular social media, music, and collaborations from around the world, both with regular average Joe musicians and larger name artists. So on Instagram, in particular, I've been really enjoying Charlie Benante from Anthrax has been doing this Yo Watch the Beat series where they cover a different song, and it's him and musicians from all kinds of other well-known bands. For the most part, sometimes he'll post a song of just him playing something, or I think he's posted a couple where it's him playing a few different instruments. But I've really enjoyed watching these videos because some of the songs are songs that you wouldn't necessarily expect to hear from anybody from Anthrax. But then it's also just an eclectic gathering of different musicians from different bands, and they've found a way to somehow still make music happen, even though, you know, some of them maybe at this point are potentially getting back together and playing again, but for the most part, especially early on, bands were not getting together and rehearsing or recording albums or, you know, doing anything other than just staying home and posting videos online. So, you know, I've really enjoyed watching those. But then there's also musicians that are maybe lesser known. They have a big following, but they maybe aren't as well known as the guys from Anthrax. And so I've really enjoyed, there have been a few people on Instagram who do Metallica covers mostly, but they do play other stuff, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce anybody's name here, but just a few of the people that I'm following, a guy by the name of Ofek Asulin, he goes by Ofek_riff_solo. He's from Israel, and he plays, Ted, you'd like him because he plays in a death metal band that they do some really awesome stuff, but his personal Instagram is mostly him doing Metallica covers, which are really cool. Then there's Taylor. I don't know his last name, but he goes by Taylor_Riff. He's in Spain. He does a lot of Metallica covers. He plays a lot of other stuff too. Riff, Riff.
not like Matt's album of the year, Swift.
No, not. You're not. I'm sorry, you're not gonna find anything Taylor Swift on my list. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. You'll find a variety of stuff, but I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift is not going to be on there. I can spoiler alert. So and then there's, and again I'm going to probably pronounce his name wrong, Dougkin K. He goes by Doug DK. On Instagram. He plays a lot of Metallica covers, had a lot of really cool James Hetfield style Explorers. And then the last person goes by the name of Kurz Hammett, like Kirk Hammett, but with a Z on the end. And he refers to himself as the Japanese Kirk. And if you go check out his Instagram, you will see why. Because he literally looks like a Japanese Kirk. He has, his guitar collection is like, all of his guitars are Kirk's signature model guitars. Yeah. And all I'm saying is if those are like actual ESP model Kirk Hammett signatures, the man must be loaded, because I can't even imagine how much money he spent on Kirk Hammett guitars. But he plays in a Metallica cover band. He advertises that he will play like as a Kirk Hammett kind of stand-in for anybody who wants to hire him. Real interesting dude. So those guys, if you're watching the video version of the show, I'll put their Twitter or their Instagram handles on the video so that you can find them if you're interested. But they put up some cool stuff. And then there's one last person who's actually a drummer, and her name is Nair Vialba. She goes by Nanu_Vialba on Instagram. She's a female drummer from Argentina. And I actually discovered her through one of Ofek's videos where he did a collaboration with her. So going back to that, like, people from all over the world collaborating and making music through social media, Ofek is in Israel and this woman is in Argentina, and the two of them put together this really cool cover of a Metallica song that I highly recommend checking out. But she posts other videos of her playing drums, and she's, in my opinion, again, not knowing a whole lot about drums, she's an awesome drummer. And then kind of sticking with drummers, this girl is, I think, pretty well known, but if you haven't heard of her, Nandi Bushnell, she's a 10-year-old girl from Britain, and she has a wide range of musical tastes and huge energy and huge talent. I mean, I wish I had even a fraction of the energy that this girl has. She's just, you have to watch her videos because she's so into her music, and she's done some stuff with some bigger name musicians as well. I know she did something with Lenny Kravitz a while back, and more recently there's been, I think, some stuff in the news that she's done a drum off with Dave Grohl.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those videos. Yeah, she's been challenging a number of different famous artists, and she'll play a drum part, and then the artist will play that same part back, and then they'll put the video of them both playing together at the same time. And she really talented. B,
Yeah.
The energy is infectious because she's very talented and very into it. But then it's so cool to see all these musicians that while we're all at home, being able to take the time and respond and make it such a viral conversation back and forth. It's certainly been a bright side of 2020 for sure.
Definitely. And then, real quick, moving over to YouTube, just a few musicians that I've discovered just because they pop up on my home pages, my suggested videos. But I think they're also on Instagram. I'm going to highlight some female musicians here. We have Sophie Lloyd, whose channel is Sophie Guitar _, Jassy J, who goes by JJ's One Girl Band, Maytal Cohen, her channel is Maytal, Meytall. She plays drums, and Brooksy, who also plays drums. And those 4 ladies I would highly recommend checking out. Phenomenal guitarists, phenomenal drummers. And then, kind of sticking with the social media thing, is actually a platform that I have to thank Ted for introducing me to, because this is where I'm kind of like a boomer and I don't really like. Ted's had to explain how Twitch works to me a few times here, but I have found myself tuning in for live streams for a couple of musicians on Twitch, and we talked a little bit during the music episode about Krebelstar, who Ted introduced me to late one night, was like, hey, this guy's playing metal guitar, sounds pretty good, you should definitely check him out.
Really good.
His repertoire is just mind-blowing to me, the amount of songs he knows. And even if, I don't think I've seen anybody request a song that he either doesn't know or can't figure out on the fly, which is, to me, kind of frustrating, because I can't play like that. I can't just, I've heard this song once, but let me see, I can probably play it, and then he plays it with minimal mistakes. The dude, he's an awesome guitar player. I definitely recommend checking him out if you didn't check him out after our video game music episode. He does also have a YouTube channel where he has a lot of video game covers that are metal style. Yep. And a lot of what if
he does Mega
song...
Man speed runs as a thing on NES, but a little bit more. He doesn't play guitar all that often, and when he does, I let everyone know, and I'm like, he's playing guitar right now. We gotta go and watch, because he certainly, it's only once or twice a month. He did do one at the time of this recording. To commemorate the 16th anniversary of Dimebag Darrell's death. So he was all Damageplan, Pantera guitar, and that's all he played for 4 hours.
It was pretty awesome.
It was very awesome. I mean, the guy is phenomenal. From Canada.
Yep.
So definitely very, very cool. And very pleased to be introduced to so many musicians, because Twitch can be thought of as a video game platform, but it's basically a medium for live streaming and being able to interact with viewers at the same time. So from a musician standpoint, there's certainly a lot of really creative people out there, and have a nice outlet to do that. So Krebelstars for one. I know who you're going to mention next, so I don't want to take that thunder, so I'll stop here.
Yeah, so Ted also introduced me to Ray Bites on Twitch, and Ray streams frequently throughout the week. He plays drums, he takes requests, anything from alt to rock to metal to, or
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theme song that Matt requested once, and he crushed it, by the way.
I forgot about that. That's right. Yeah. Yep. I mean, he'll play pretty much anything that people request, even if he doesn't really know it. And so, the last time, and Ted, I think you joined into that stream kind of toward the end, and I happened to see that he was live earlier on in the stream. And before you joined in, it was a lot of like conversation about alternative music, and a lot of the requests I put in were alternative, and then we got to talking about that, and then he's got a Discord.
It's a Discord server.
I'm gonna show Boomer status. I don't really understand Discord either. But he's got a bunch of kind of, I guess, channels where you can talk about different topics on his Discord server. And so afterwards, we kind of like a bunch of people moved over there, and there was continued conversation about alt music, and we had some conversation about gear at one point, and I had mentioned that my amp is out of commission until I can go get it fixed. And so we had some conversation on Discord about that. And so, I mean, aside from being able to hear musicians play things that you request and getting to meet new people, I also find that even though it's kind of odd because you're just talking to people in a chat, you're not talking to them via video, you're not having a voice conversation, it feels like there's still a sense of community and socializing, which I mean, because you're talking to people who have a similar interest, and that leads to other conversation. It's usually the same people typically who are in those streams, and so like I don't spend a ton of time on Twitch, but when I do, those two guys I typically do go watch their streams and have, you know, gotten to know them a little bit better and gotten to know a few of the people in the streams, in the chat a little bit better. And like, I'm also really excited to mention that Ray and a couple of other people who are on his streams do a podcast, the Slayer Bites podcast, where they also stream that live via Twitch. And it's a little bit different than how we do it, obviously, because we do this via Zoom and we edit it and then we release it later. They do theirs live, so you can go have conversation in the chat, and they usually interact with people in the chat, and it's a really cool show. They talk about all things music and tech, and so we're really excited because we're working on trying to get Ray and Joda from Slayer Bites onto Distorted Opinions in the new year, and I think that's going to be a really cool show when we're able to make that happen. But those guys are out on the West Coast, so again, like,
they're really cool, but yeah, now we're talking about, oh, this guitar player from Canada. You've mentioned the drummer from Argentina. You know, the world is so much smaller, and obviously Ray and Joda, those guys are out in Washington. So, you know, it's certainly really neat that as much as, well, we've socially come in, the internet is allowing us to fan back out in a different way to connect with people we would never have normally met. And there's a lot of really nice people out there.
Definitely.
And these guys are awesome too, because, you know, they're personable. And what's great too is that, you know, just like what everyone was mentioning about the community, you know, they're responsive, you know, so when you, I know when we were on that streaming, you know, even requesting, you know, there's no hesitation. They just go, okay, you know, sure, we'll do it. And, you know, they're just very, very chill guys. And I think that's what makes, you know, great, especially, you know, during tough times now, that even though, you know, times can suck now, it does open up windows to other opportunities that we would have never thought before pre-COVID. So, you know, if there's positive things to look at, you know, whether it's the good times or the bad times, you know, is that, you know, collaboration has, you know, skyrocketed everywhere.
Right. Definitely. And so I originally had a couple of new music items on my list, but I'm going to kind of just like graze through those real quick because you guys kind of covered that. And I want to tie into my last item while we're kind of on the topic. And my cat is like giving me a hard time
wants the spotlight.
What do you want?
Damn
while
cat.
While we're on the topic of the show, I want to go into my last item, so I'm gonna just graze across these new items real quick. We talked about the Seven Dust album, excellent stuff. AC/DC put out a new album this year, which, if you've listened to AC/DC in the past, it's your standard AC/DC. Yeah, AC/DC has a particular sound, and you know it's AC/DC, and it's AC/DC. And then Joji, we talked about in one of the previous episodes. I had Joji's song Run as my song of the week. He just put out that album this year. That's a great album as well. So that's going to be it for my new music talk, and kind of now going into the whole making connections with people around the world, there's no way that I can end my good from 2020 list without giving us a little pat on the shoulder and mentioning Distorted Opinions, because so, you know, this show for me was a big step out of my comfort zone. I work in production. I've been in production for a little over 10 years now, and I've always said, you're not getting me in front of a camera. I'm not on camera talent. I do the behind the scenes stuff. I direct the shows. I do the audio. I run the camera, whatever. But you're not getting me in front of a camera. And I don't like seeing myself on camera. I don't like hearing my own voice. Do I even need to mention how not feminine my voice is? I'm sure people have thought it. I know there are plenty of people who feel the need to point it out to me, like I haven't known this for the last 30 some odd years. So if you're thinking it, don't even bother saying it to me. I don't need to hear it. But I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice. So what do? I decide that, why don't we start a show where I have to now listen to and see myself for hours on end after the show's done, and I have to edit these together. I guess I've just kind of like, at this point, tuned it out and it doesn't bother me so much. But this show has been one of my few sources of sanity for the last 9 months. Work has been incredibly stressful. I have found that despite trying to separate work and personal life, that's been really hard for me. So work consumes most of my life. I don't really get an opportunity to do a lot of creative stuff for work right now. And so this show has not only been an outlet for me to do something creative, but it's also been an opportunity for me to get together with friends every week and talk about something I really love, which is music. And so I get the honor of getting to hang out with Matt and Ted via Zoom and just do something fun like this, and also from time to time bring on some of our other friends and bring them into the fold of being on the show. And we've expanded that a little bit, and in the new year we're looking to expand that more and bring in more people from other places throughout the country and throughout the world. And so I feel like, despite not being able to socialize, this show has really helped me to still feel connected on some level with my friends and with a wider group of people. It's also, I've talked to some people that I haven't talked to in a long time based off of this show, and now they're watching or listening to this show, and we talk about the show on a regular basis. And so I hope that our listeners and our viewers and our fans have also felt that this has brought them some level of sanity and a level of connection, even though it's a really bizarre time that we're in right now. Because I know for me, doing this show has meant a lot. So I would be remiss if I didn't close out my list for the best of 2020 without talking about this show and what it's meant to me. And I really look forward to us continuing to do this show in 2021. We've got a few changes coming down the road.
For the better, by the way.
Yeah. If you guys want, I can just kind of like briefly touch on what people might expect coming up in the new year.
Do we want to? Or maybe
or do we just let them?
let
it be a surprise?
So from a video perspective, I might want to give people a little heads up of what to expect there, just because if you're somebody who watches the video version of the show, it's usually pretty polished, and I try to make a lot of effort to make it not look like we're doing this via Zoom, even though we are doing it via Zoom. But in order to do that, that takes a lot of time after we record the show. And so we've had a lot of conversation about the format of the show going forward and what things are going to look like when people start returning to the office, and what that's going to look like for me as the person who edits together the video version of this show. And do I want to have to go spend 40 hours at the office and then now on the weekend record a show and spend another 8 to 10 hours editing it, because I don't have the fastest editing computer on the planet, so that kind of bogs things down too. And so we were thinking, like, all right, we're going to continue to do the show via Zoom, but we'll just focus on the audio. And then we talked about it a bit and decided, well, if we're doing it via Zoom anyway, we could still release video. So what you're going to see, maybe a step backwards from what people might expect given what we've been doing, but the video version of the show is probably just going to be a gallery view from Zoom and not quite the polished edit that it's been in the past, just so that we can quickly make the video available and not spend a lot of time on it. And if you're watching the video version, leave us a comment from time to time or interact with it so that we have some idea of whether or not you're watching the video and you enjoy it. But, you know, that's probably going to be one of the big changes that you're going to notice if you're a viewer of the video, is it's not going to be quite as polished as it was, but we're still going to be talking about great music related content. It's hopefully going to be even better than it's been this year. We're constantly striving to improve the show every week when we do a new one. And, you know, aside from that, we've got some other exciting things coming that maybe I shouldn't touch on those and leave those a surprise, but we got
some great guests coming.
Yeah, great guests, rebrand, potential maybe website and merchandise later on in the new year. So just keep an eye out. We've got a lot of really exciting things coming up. And so with that wraps up my list for 2020. I think, unless you guys have anything else, I think maybe we're ready to...
I do. We both touched
Ted
upon...
had one more thing too.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, we both touched upon, you know, the podcast, and you know, certainly it is something that I do have certainly enjoyed, in having a routine and getting to talk to you guys far more frequently than most anyone else, to be honest. You know, getting to collaborate during the week, planning for each episode, and then actually spending, you know, 2 hours in a Zoom on a weekly basis to do these things, certainly has been fantastic, and definitely am proud to be a part of this particular project. I mean, we have fun doing it, and I'm happy we get to roll this into 2021, and you know, certainly there will be changes, and hopefully life will get back to normal, but I hope we don't necessarily lose, you know, what all the efforts we've already put into it. And I do think this has definitely been a good start and another plus for 2020, given what we've accomplished thus far. And, you know, thank you guys for being cool. Yep. and being able to do this and commit to a regular schedule and, you know, make it work. So, you know, definitely thanks. Shout out to you guys. And to the listeners. I mean, let's not forget the listeners.
Yes.
I mean, we might do this if no one was listening, but happy that there's people listening too. So
yeah,
very, very much so.
Shout out to our number one fan, Ned, by the way, who sent another email last week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
You know, it's great to see, and you know, just like what Ted mentioned, you know, it's, you know, the show grows and becomes stronger and stronger every time we do an episode. And it helps to see that we get notifications on a weekly basis saying someone's subscribed to us, someone's following us on social media. So yeah, you guys are helping us, you know, have fun with this project. And, you know, it's 2021 is going to be great, you know, for the show. We have so much coming down the line. Definitely a new branding, you know, a lot more laughs, a lot more, you know, distorted opinions. One thing, again, you guys don't have to worry about is political opinions, because that's not what the show is about. And, you know, for everyone that's reached out to us and said, thank you for not being one of those political idiots. Hey, you're welcome, because that's not us. We have fun. So we have video game episodes coming up. Okay. That was a popular one. We got a bunch of gear talks coming up, and we got, oh, you're going to have to wait for it. So
I like it.
It's nice. Gonna be great. It's gonna be great. So, guys,
did you guys have a song of the week, by the way, or
I do?
Best of. I mean, Matt. I mean, we know Taylor Swift's your favorite, so I mean, I'm never gonna let you live that down now.
It's fine. Listen, if you would have asked me about 5 years ago, you're going to talk that Taylor Swift's Forlore. Taylor Swift's going to come out with an album called Forlore in 2020, and you're going to reference that it's one of the best albums. I may probably go Go Kick Rocks, because it's not going to happen. And Who knows? I mean, right now, supposedly she came out with another one called Evermore, so I'm gonna have to take a listen to that one. And but no, Taylor Swift's not gonna be my song of the week. Actually,
All
it's
right,
gonna
all right.
it's gonna be something different. It's gonna be something
Okay. So with that, I suppose my best of 2020 pick is actually an album that in reviewing other lists and recaps of 2020, I wound up discovering this album, and holy moly, it is fantastic.
Macaroni.
I've purchased it, I've listened to it every day, soup to nuts, and in love with this. It is the band is called Black Crown Initiate. They're an American progressive death metal group from Reading, Pennsylvania, and their 2020 album Violent Portraits of Doomed Escape, which came out August 7th, is phenomenal. It has a great vocals that give it a strong Mastodon vibe, but the growls are very guttural, so it has a discarnate or behemoth type of raspiness to it. The guitars are fantastic. Kind of has a Veil of Maya influence, but the acoustic parts remind me of Opeth, and the drums from Flesh God Apocalypse, basically. I mean, all those different bands and those elements come together for this album, and love it. 9 tracks. The opener track of Invitation lulls you in nice and soft, and then it literally punches you in the jaw with a burst of metal, and it is awesome. Nice. Fantastic. All the songs are great. Son of War, probably I would recommend as if you're going to just try a song off of this album. Trauma Bonds, which is track 3, or Son of War, track 2. I think either one of those gives a good essence as to what the album sounds like, because all the tracks are fairly similar. But if you're into some of that, it is great. Hands down. Like, I'm done. That wins 2020 for me in terms of music. So
It's good.
It's good. It is. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt to see where your actual pick is.
It's gonna be a good one. Okay, so 3 things. Ted, you'll get this one. Kayla, I can see you getting this one too. Okay, so 3 things. September 9th, 1997. Skateboarding and Tony Hawk. What song
So it's
you
going
think
to
I'm
be a
talking about?
Goldfinger reference?
Yes, it is. I am talking about Goldfinger's Superman is going to be my ending song for 2020 for the song of the week for 2 reasons. One, it's just a badass song. I mean, anyone that has played...
you're talking that you're best. It's not even a current release 2020. Your song of the week is just a good old fashioned classic.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I get you.
Like if there's an infinite amount of like a top 5 that's always going to be solidified and not change, Goldfinger's Superman is going to be always up there until I leave this planet. So it's just and I might reference this later on in future episodes, because again, it's a phenomenal song. But the reason for this is because not only was it featured in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, okay, but it was also featured in the feature film Kingpin. So I watched it last night and figured, hey, you know what? Because I was struggling to figure out what type of song, and then I figured this is a great ending to 2020.
Well, and also can we point out 2020 had the Tony Hawk game
remake
re-release. The remake came out this year, so I'll let that pass as
a tie-in.
As a tie-in for 2020. So
and
okay.
actually, Superman is on that is in that game too. So I mean, technically, okay. So we're in the 2020 range. Okay, didn't think that.
You're welcome. Saved you.
But more specifically, okay. So that's number 1. But number 2, you know, Kayla and Ted. You know, we were talking about, you know, because the pandemic has really impacted, you know, the music industry, and everything has now been a virtual has been either on pause, or they've taken another element to go ahead and, or another direction to making performances virtual. And Goldfinger did a COVID edition of Superman, so all the members were at home live.
That's true. I did watch this. Yes,
and it was a phenomenal performance, so clear, and obviously everyone is, you know, doing this whole social distance, but in their own homes. So I definitely recommend, for anyone that is a Superman fan of Goldfinger, okay, that go check it out on YouTube. It's a COVID-19 edition. It's absolutely phenomenal, and after seeing this, it brought me back to like the early teenage years of playing Tony Hawk with you, Ted, and our friends growing up. And it brought a whole nother element to, kind of a little bit of a home. So, and I think listening to this, and I'm going to assume that the band did this intentionally, is because it's such a it's a very unique tune that, especially for our age that grew up on it, especially for video game people, that it was a sense of home. And during these times, I felt like listening to this was a little of a backstory, like, hey guys, we're all in this together. So just enjoy it. We want you guys to enjoy it, and just a little bit of home. But
I will point out in that video, it is a stark reminder as to how long ago that song came out, because those guys are older now, and if you're used to, if you're thinking back to the days when that song came out, or you maybe seen a music video or whatever, we're no longer all spring chickens anymore. And
Nope.
just as a kind of downer on that, but that video is fantastic.
It is. It's great. So, Goldfinger Superman song debuted on the album, actually studio album called, and I'm so sorry, I apologize. I believe it's called Hang Ups. Hang Ups 1997. Song came out in 97. Just goes to show that's still rocking tune. But other than that, I'm gonna switch it over to Kayla.
Alrighty.
Oh,
The Brady Bunch, point, look, whatever, wrong.
So, real quick, because I meant to mention this, I don't remember, Ted, I think it might have been you that mentioned that there have been a number of bands that have been doing remote concerts. I meant to mention that Metallica has actually done a couple of different remote shows, and early on they did kind of what Matt was just describing with Goldfinger. They did a acoustic, socially distanced version of Blackened that was pretty awesome. Especially, it was great to see James, because I know James had kind of taken a step back, I believe, toward the end of last year. Anybody who's followed Metallica is aware James has had an ongoing issue with alcohol, and I guess he had kind of relapsed and needed to take some time from the band to deal with that. So it was really great to see James performing with the band again, even if it wasn't a everybody in the same room kind of performance. And then they also did a drive-in movie theater performance that they filmed specifically for people to go view at drive-ins throughout the country. And there's a whole interesting story behind that too that I recently read that I'm not going to get into right now because we're kind of up against the clock here. But basically they kind of but they quietly did this performance in a vineyard to not draw attention to people and create a crowd. And so their entire performance, apparently they had, like, while they had their amps and everything there, you actually couldn't hear anything. They didn't have any of that stuff piping out into the open, which I thought was really interesting. And so I didn't get to go see that because the cost of tickets was reasonable if you had more than one person to go to the show, but as somebody who would be going by themselves, $125 to go drive into a drive-in and watch this performance was just not a good way for me to spend my money. But they also just recently did an online streaming concert that they did. I think part of it was acoustic and part of it was electric, and that was all done as a fundraiser and for the All Within My Hands Foundation. And so they the cost of being able to view that went toward the foundation, but also they auctioned off a whole bunch of stuff too, and I think they raised over $3 million for the foundation, which is really fantastic. So definitely there have been a lot of cool online based concerts that have come out of this too. So I just wanted to touch on that because, Matt, your comment about Goldfinger reminded me of the acoustic version of Blackened that they did. But with that being said, back to the song of the week. Quick reminder, we have a Song of the Week playlist on Spotify where we put the full version of all of our picks that you can go listen to. We put the link to that in the description of every show, so just go to the description if you want to check it out. And then occasionally we have special playlists for specific episodes, like our acoustic episode, the video game episode, and our holiday episode last week. And we always put the link to that in the description for that particular show. So if you go back and watch any of those, be sure to see if there's a special playlist for that show. But we always have our Song of the Week playlist linked in the description, so check it out. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my pick of the week because you guys kind of talked about this too. And so my pick of the week is
Taylor
the
Swift.
Seven Dusts. No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, going Seven Dust.
Yeah, the Seven Dust cover of The Day I Tried to Live, which was on their 2020 release, Blood and Stone, which just came out in October. I actually stumbled across this when I was putting together, don't ask me how it came up when I was doing this, but when I was putting together our holiday playlist last week is actually the first time I heard this cover of the song. And like Matt had mentioned when he talked about this, it still has the feel of Chris Cornell and Soundgarden, which I've talked about this on previous shows. There are bands that I think are really hard to pull off well if you're going to cover their songs, largely because of the vocals. And anything Soundgarden kind of falls into that category for me. Chris Cornell's vocals were very unique, and it's, in my opinion, hard to do a cover justice when you're doing any sort of a Soundgarden song. And I think that the guys from Seven Dust really did a great job with this. It still has that Soundgarden sound, but it also has the Seven Dust touch on it. And so I really enjoyed this cover when I heard it. If you haven't heard it, definitely give it a listen. It's a great cover of the song. Give the whole album a listen, but this one in particular, The Day I Tried to Live by Seven Dust, originally by Soundgarden.
So what I'm understanding here is that we've all selected Seven Dust to talk about within our own individual research. So therefore, the album of the year from Distorted Opinions should be Seven Dust, Blood and Stone.
Yes, I would agree.
Because we've unanimously voted for this in one capacity or another without even communicating our picks for this week. And it's boiled down to that. So, all right. I'm okay with it.
That.
It's a great album.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. One more time around.
Nice.
Watch out, we're going to get flagged.
Yeah.
So,
when it does, all I hear is
muted and just mouthing the words.
So I'm just like a real quick side point about that. I've actually been appealing the copyright claims on the YouTube versions of the show, and we actually, I assume, just won our first one because the label didn't dispute it and they had 30 days to do so. So that copyright restriction that was on that particular episode has been lifted. And so I've been doing this with more... I don't challenge it if it's just like you can't monetize the video because we're nowhere near the point of that even being an issue for us. But if they're telling me that they're blocking the video, that's a problem. So if they're being that strict about it, I've been challenging it. And so far we've been winning with the fair use argument because I do argue that our use of these snippets of songs is fair use. So... if they try to flag us for Matt's little like one-liner out of The Day I Tried to Live, then we're gonna fight it. So that being said, unless you guys have anything else to add, I think we've reached the end of our 2020 wrap-up show here.
Indeed.
Believe it or not. So once again, just thank you to everybody who's supported us over the last 8 or 9 months that we've been doing this. We're really looking forward to continuing it in the new year. We hope you stick through it with us and continue to enjoy the show. And as a reminder, if you have any ideas for future show topics, or if you would be interested in being a guest, you can always reach out to us. There's a few ways to do that. You can head over to our Anchor page at anchor.fm/distortedopinions, and you can leave us a voicemail. You can also find links to our pages on social media and give us a follow on Instagram and a like on Facebook. And you can also find a partial list of the platforms that the show is available in audio-only format on, but it's not complete. So if you don't see your favorite podcast platform on there, just search for Distorted Opinions, because there's a good chance that we're on whatever platform you listen to. And then the other way that you can reach out to us, if you prefer, is via email. And I think, last show of the year, and Matt seems to have finally gotten the email address the last few episodes. Yeah. Matt, do you want to take this, or would you like me to send us off?
Oh, he's winding up. He's getting ready.
Getting warmed up. Doing his calisthenics here.
Distorted Opinions Show at gmail.com.
Nice.
That's it. That is it. distortedopinionshow@gmail.com. Send us an email. We are responsive there. We are responsive on any of our social media platforms. We love getting voicemails. We don't get as many of those as I would like, so feel free to leave us a voicemail and you might be part of a future show. And with that, guys, that is a wrap on 2020 for Distorted Opinions.
The 2020.
Believe it or not.
All right. I'm ready for 2021. Let's go.
I agree.
Yeah. We'll see everybody next year in 2021. Be sure to come along for the ride.
Slow and low, baby. Slow and low.
Thank you all so much. We hope you have a safe and wonderful new year, and we will see you in 2021.
See you next year. Bye-bye.